Hi, everybody. This is Anderson Schoenland. It is January the 15th, 2021, and my guest is Gueric Dechavanne from Collateral Verifications, where he is VP Commercial Aviation Services.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Gueric. Thanks for visiting with me again.
Yeah,
So,
it's always a pleasure.
There's a story out today about MAX deliveries, and if the plane was made 2 years ago, but getting delivered now, it's a 2021 model.
Yeah, which I've seen the story as well, and yeah, I mean it's not uncommon, right? I think I think on average over the past, right, there has always been some situations where you have some whitetails that come into play where they've maybe been canceled by an operator and then they sit for a while and then they are redelivered to somebody else, and it's all based on, with Boeing airplanes, it's all based on when the date of the certificate of the C of A is placed, or the delivery date really of the airplane. That's when the aircraft can be viewed as, okay, well, it was an aircraft that was built in that year. I think with the MAX situation, it's the same, but it's different as well, right? Because we're talking about a period of almost 2 years where some of these aircraft will have been produced and put in storage. So how do you account for that? And I think Boeing has done a good job of saying, hey, look, we obviously we're going to, these aircraft will have a C of A as of when they deliver. We have zeroed out, the warranties. We've basically done what we need to do to make these aircraft be just like new airplanes. But I think overall the market and I think the appraisal community is paying attention to that to say, look, we understand that, but if you've got a new airplane coming out of the factory today and you're selling another one that's been sitting there for almost 2 years, the buyer is not going to be willing to pay the same price for either one of those airplanes, right? They're going to want some level of discounting, and I think that's what we're seeing in the market for aircraft that are being offered today, whether it's from airlines that are trying to do sale leasebacks or whether it's from Boeing directly, where they're trying to place some of the aircraft that were produced but then canceled, so they were in somebody else's livery. So the pricing that's coming out of there's definitely a discount that we're seeing from a 2021 build airplane coming out of the factory. And I think that's what's trying to get reflected out there is what are those differences and how do you account for that?
So we could maybe perhaps understand this, that an airplane that was built 2 years ago, 18 months ago, is 18 months old. Boeing says, well, it's delivered now, so it's a now model. But people in your line of work in the appraisal community, the MSN, what's what, when the plane was really created and pushed out the factory. Boeing is perhaps then trying to do something nice for its customers to try and create some value here, perhaps?
Well, I mean, look, I think the certificate of airworthiness is definitely something that's key with these airplanes, right? And I think Boeing has done what they need to do to make sure that the latest software updates or whatever latest upgrades or updates have been done on the aircraft, right? So from that standpoint, right, there shouldn't be a lot of difference between an aircraft that's coming out of the factory versus one that's been sitting, because they should be up to date. But I mean, you do have to take into account the fact that there will be almost 2 years of aging, right? And aging, it's as much as you say you can try to prevent, any level of aging on an aircraft by, storing it correctly, or to me, it's still aging, right? So, and I think that's what's being considered when you're trying to price this. And, that's kind of my approach what I've done, when I've looked at kind of whitetails that have delivered at a later date, is to apply some level of depreciation to that airplane. And I think what we're seeing in the pricing that's being offered today for these airplanes, I think that reflects some of that as well, right? It's because the market is looking at these going, look, I really appreciate the fact that this is going to be a 2021 build airplane on paper, but it's been sitting for almost 2 years. And so I want some kind of discount to take that airplane.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that's what you're seeing.
Now, another thing in the story that I found fascinating was the concern that the max value, period to period, in other words, a comparable period, that the max value is now below that of the 320 Neo. How much of a
Right.
problem is that? And why is that
You know,
even an issue?
well, because I think so when you think back to the differential between the 737-800 and the A320ceo, there was always about a $2 million or so difference based on the additional seats, right? And so, and the Max and the Neo kind of initially came in, and there was almost a $2 million difference. It was kind of pretty comparable when they first came out, when they were new. And now, because Boeing's kind of lost 2 years of time to continue that trend, the airplane is getting hit pretty hard in terms of where it's being discounted, because there is an additional risk that people are taking in the Max. So the seating advantage that would have typically given it a premium is not being accounted for today, right? Because I think the risk discount that's being put on the airplane because of everything that's happened is greater than the premium that you're going to get from the seats, right? And also, I mean, look, buyers and operators have much more leverage today to be able to get some kind of discount from Boeing on airplanes, and that was expected. But it's I mean, look, I think Boeing's got a long run ahead of them to get back to kind of the equal market share they used to have with Airbus on the between the A320 and the 737. I mean, they've lost 2 years of production, and that's going to take some time to make up, if they ever make it up. I don't know if they're going to be able to make enough airplane to reach that. But I don't know if to me, it doesn't really matter, right? I mean, they're both going to become once again the highly sought after airplanes. They're going to be high liquid aircraft, assuming no more incidents, no more anything, bad with the airplanes, which I'm sure everybody's doing what they need to do for that not to happen. So I think going forward, yeah, I mean, both aircraft have great, capabilities. It's just now, as it re-enters the market in a crisis, the market is reacting and saying, look, we'll see what we can get. We'll see if we can get a better deal, because we are taking a bigger risk for an airplane that's been out of service for almost 2 years.
Gueric, in your valuation curves, what does the max value look like? Is it a steeper curve than NG was at the same time? How much steeper? And how does that curve look going forward compared to the 320 Neo?
So from my base value curves, right now they both appreciate at the same rate, just because when you look at the backlog of both aircraft, right, it's pretty comparable, and so I expect them to depreciate at the same rate. This for now, it's staying that way. If it'll depend on what happens with the next generation of aircraft that will replace the Max or the Neo, which I think right now we're still probably at least 10 to 15 years away before we see the next generation of aircraft coming into the market to be able to replace those. So I think Boeing probably has a pretty good window to continue to produce the Max. So does Airbus. I mean, look, these are aircraft that will at some point, become the new cash cow, right? They will replace the CEOs and the NGs to become the new cash cows. So for both manufacturers, but that's going to take some time. So I think neither one of them is going to probably take the risk of, hey, let's see if we can come up with something, spend another $5 to $10 billion on a brand new airplane, just to outdo the other guy. I think they're going to try to just capitalize on these great airplanes for as long as they can, until probably environmental issues probably come up, where they start going, look, we need an airplane that is going to be much more efficient than you've had before. And I think that's when you start to see a new platform develop. But I don't expect it until probably the second half of the next decade.
Last question for you then. If we look at the disrupted period in the Max life, how long does it take before this becomes just forgotten in your line of work?
I mean, look, we need to be first of all in a recovery phase to begin with, and we need to see Boeing get back to a fairly normal production rate, right? I mean, I think they're they're pushing to get to 31 airplanes a month this year, right? We'll see how long it takes them to get there. They're also they're very busy delivering aircraft that were grounded, both, you know, obviously that were stored with airlines, and then just stored based on you know, the fact that they were produced but not delivered. And that's going to take, you know, 12 to 18 months, if not more, to be able to get away from that. I think once they get away from that, once they start being at a more mature production rate, I think that's when we can start kind of seeing this and looking, you know, looking at it as an event that's passed, and now let's move forward and let's get back to work.
Thanks so much, Gueric. I appreciate your time always.
Always. It's always great to talk to you. Thanks again.